Hey, this is the World Advice Channel too. What I want to talk about today is the problem with Asia's work culture. So, for this video, I'm going to explain in a simple and straightforward way the problem with Asia's work culture when it comes to this whole idea that working nonstop at something is the best way to be a master at a craft. Because, simply put it is not the best way to become a master at your craft. Okay? And that's what I'm going to be talking about for this video in a simple and straightforward way so anyone can understand it. So now I mentioned that, let's get started. So when it comes to the problem with Asia's work culture, which I know here in the West we tend to praise them very highly for being the masters at everything because they work so hard and yada 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 yada. Like China, Korea, Japan, the whole nine yards. They're masters at everything that they do because they work so hard. What I want to talk about today, of course, is why that's not necessarily needed. And the reason why I say that is because to be a master of your craft, though you do have to work a lot, it does not necessarily mean you have to work nonstop. And the best reason why I say that, or I should say, the reason why I say that, is simply down to the fact that to become a master of craft, you have to understand something known as theory. Because theory is actually the best way to become a master at your craft instead of just doing rigorous, repetitive work nonstop. Okay? Because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to Asia's work culture, you know, that we are taught, here in the West to look up to, and not just taught to look up to, but we're also taught that if you want to be the master at anything, you have to work like them. The truth of the matter is that is actually not the truth at all, for that matter, to become a master of your craft. Okay, and what I mean by a master of your craft, it could be anything. It could be whether you want to learn how to be the master at learning how to work with technology, like you want to learn how to create smartphones, like electronics or vehicles or stuff, or you want to be a master at maybe something else, maybe something more like food, or it could be music, literature, whatever you want it to be. Whether it's something that's more technical, like technology, construction work, stuff like that. Something that we really need, or something for leisure, more like music, art, literature, whatever of the two main categories of skills you want to do. The truth is, the idea of working nonstop to be the best you can be, like 5, 10 hours a day for like anywhere from weeks to months on end or even years every single day is not necessarily needed, okay? Because the truth of the matter is, to elaborate further on my point about why you don't need to work nonstop, is that to understand what I'm trying to get at here when it comes to the theory is the reason why I say theory, to elaborate on my point about theory and why it's actually more important than just working nonstop, is that theory is the ability to understand the overall concept of what you're doing, okay? It's to understand not only the overall concept, but it's to come up with ideas that can improve your abilities much greater and faster than just simply saying, okay, I'm just going to work nonstop, okay? It's just like, for example, okay, let's just give an easy example, okay? That's definitely one of the best examples I can give, okay? Let's just say you want to be a Michelin star chef. You want to be, in other words, the one of the world's greatest chefs. Okay. The truth of the matter is, to be one of the world's greatest chefs, let's just say, since we're talking about Asia anyway, you want to be a world class sushi chef. Okay. So literally one of the best chefs in the world. Okay. The truth of the matter is, to be one of the best chefs, obviously the most important thing to do is to make sure that your food has the most amount of flavor, when it comes to your food, like a Michelin star level of flavor, like the highest level of flavor or something, whatever they use nowadays, because some people say Michelin is a bit of a scam or something, but whatever. You want your food to have as much level of flavor as possible, okay? That's the point here, to be the best you can be and be in, like, these high level food rating systems and stuff that they have in the world, where they rate what are the world's best restaurants, shit like that, okay? You get my point, okay? You want to learn how to make your food as flavorful as possible to get to that level of quality, okay? The truth of the matter is, you will, like anybody who actually puts enough time and effort to analyze things, you're gonna realize at some point, okay, if you think enough, okay, that there's something known as a peak, okay? Like anything in the world, there's something known as a peak, okay? And if you're trying to make something as flavorful to get to a Michelin star level, you know, you're gonna realize that there's only so much seasoning and so much sugar you can put in something until it's as flavorful as it could be, like Michelin level flavorful, okay? So the truth of the matter is, to be quite honest with you, using common sense, maybe you should put more time and effort into understanding the theory of it. Okay? Like maybe testing out, okay, I can add this much sugar, this much seasoning. Okay, if I add this much, okay, for example, this is actually what I mean. If I add this much seasoning and sugar, it'll be this flavorful. If I add a little bit more, it'll be this much more flavorful. Like shit like that. That's an example of what I'm trying to get at here. That's how you think if you want to figure it out. Just saying I'm just going to work nonstop, 7 days a week, hours on end, just practicing, learning all these different things and this and that to be a master sushi chef or something like that is not really needed and necessary. You're just going to exhaust yourself and you're missing the point of what you're supposed to do. And that's what you have to do if you really want your food to be the best. Like with the sushi example I'm giving, like you have to understand the overall concept of what you're doing. Like for example, how can you make your food up to a flavor standard that of course is needed for Michelin? Okay, that's what I'm trying to get across here. Okay, there are ways to test it out. Like theoretically, you can figure it out instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna practice nonstop and I'm gonna see, how much I can practice till I get to this level and yada 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 yada." Like that's not really needed. And it's not just for flavor, just for anything, whether it could be cutting the stuff at the perfect ratio for the fish, maybe learning how to, you know, speed up your process, your technique of being able to produce the food as quickly as you possibly can. Though it's all down to theory, which is the overall ability to overall analyze what you're supposed to do and figure it out. That's how you do it. Okay, whether it's idea, um, like coming up with a new idea to make something faster, first and foremost, or secondly, when it comes to theory, your ability to overall understand the overall concept of what you're doing. That's how you become a master at it. Because the truth of the matter is in life, everything has a peak to it. So to say, okay, all I have to do to become a master at, this, is just practice nonstop. That's not necessary. That's not necessary. And it's not just for, of course, sushi. It's for anything in the world for that matter. You have to understand the theory first. In other words, you have to think more than just deciding to work nonstop. Because the truth of the matter is, if we live in a world where everyone thinks to be a master at something, you have to work nonstop. That doesn't sound like a very fun world to live in. All honesty, to be honest with you, look at the amount of issues Asia is having. They're not having children. They have an extremely high suicide rate. They also have an extremely high depression rate because of that whole philosophy is I'm going to work nonstop 24/7. But to work nonstop 24/7 is not necessarily guaranteed the stuff is going to be of great quality. At some point you're going to realize there's a peak to everything, for that matter. Okay, and that's the truth of the matter I'm trying to get at here, for everything. So at some point you're going to realize, like, if you think enough, and you think it not just enough, but think in a logical way, there's a peak to everything. There's only so much you can do. Like, let's just say, for example, if you want to be a martial artist, that you can do until you become the best fighter you can be. Like, what do you think? This is like freaking Pokemon, not even Pokemon, but like some anime show where you can go to a level where you can start jumping off buildings and stuff. No, there's a certain point you're gonna realize, okay, I can only make a sword strike this fast, or I can only do this many sword strikes in this period of time, whatever. So what I'm trying to say here is that using sword fighting as an example, another good example is there's a peak to everything. So in short, to sum it up, for every skill, there's a peak for how good you can become at it. And the best way to reach that peak is to use your head and think, and not just say, I'm just going to practice nonstop. Because the truth of the matter, that way of thinking, not just for Asia, but for the whole world, is a very toxic way of thinking. It can cause a lot of problems and screw our world up. Okay, so that's really what I'm trying to communicate here. Being the best you can be at something does not mean you have to fucking just work nonstop. Okay, you just simply have to think. It doesn't mean you don't work a lot. You definitely do, but you don't have to work like 8, 10 hours a day to be the best you can be. And that's the truth of the matter, for that matter. Okay, so this is my video. This is all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed it and found it informative. And just remember, if you like this video and videos like this, remember to sum this video up and hit the subscribe button. And this is all I have to say. And simply put it, I'm out. Bye.